The Dallas Cowboys play in the East, the Minnesota Timberwolves are in the Northwest Division, and Rutgers now plays UCLA in conference games. Fans are crying about how geography is dead in American sports, but that didn't start with conference realignment here in the 2020s. It goes back way earlier than you think. This is the story of how American sports completely gave up on maps. From baseball in the 60s to college football in 2025, leagues have been throwing darts at geography for decades and calling it structure. If you've ever looked at a division and thought, that makes no sense, hit that like button and also subscribe for great sports content like this. Back in the early 1900s, geography actually kind of worked. Not because the leagues were smart, but because everything was packed into the Northeast. The Yankees and Red Sox owned that area. The Cubs and Cardinals ran the Midwest. If you could get there by train, you were good to go. Same with the early NFL. There were a bunch of teams in Ohio and Indiana. It was simple and made sense. Fans could travel, rivalries were local, and divisions actually helped people understand the game. It wasn't perfect, but it also wasn't insane. Then expansion happened, and things got a little freaky. Let's talk MLB in 1969. They introduced divisions split into the East and West. It should have been very simple. Instead, they tossed the Braves and Reds, both firmly in the Eastern time zone, into the NL West. The Braves versus Giants was a division rivalry. Meanwhile, the Cubs and Cardinals, who were literally farther west, landed in the NL East. And apparently it was the New York Mets complaints that made this happen. You Mets fans have always been crazy. Then the NFL said, hold my Coors, because after the 1970 merger, they had a clean slate and somehow made everything dumber. Cowboys, NFC East. Falcons and Saints, NFC West. That's how you get a New Orleans versus 49ers in a Western matchup, while Dallas is constantly beefing with Philadelphia. And this stayed the same for 30 years. No one blinked. Meanwhile, the NBA introduced the Midwest Division, which at one point included the following teams: Utah, Denver, Dallas, San Antonio, and even Miami. By the 1980s, every major league had done at least one thing that made us geography-obsessed Americans scratch our head. But the next era is where sports logic got bought out by cable television. By the 90s, sports weren't just ignoring maps, they were actively fighting them like Ron Artest type fighting. Let's start with the NFL. In 2002, they hit the reset button, full realignment, time to clean the slate. And for your enjoyment, here are a couple ideas that they were voting on. Dallas could have literally been in the NFC West. That was crazy. Instead, they stayed in the East. The Colts moved to the AFC South despite being north of everyone else in that division, and the Seahawks quietly switched from AFC to NFC. The MLB doubled down on weird. The Pirates landed in the NL Central, even though they're east of the Braves, who were in the NL East. Now, the Astros stayed in the Central too, because Texas is obviously close to Pittsburgh. This was so weird when there were 6 teams in the NL Central and 4 in the NL West. What an era. The NBA division chaos continued. The Toronto Raptors were placed in the Central Division for a short period of time. Geography was out the window. Market reach, that was in. This is where it gets shameless. Leagues stopped pretending geography mattered, and divisions became more about history and TV matchups than anything spatially logical. The NHL did make one really smart move in 2013. The Detroit Red Wings, who had been flying to the West Coast for division games for 30 years, finally moved east. That is progress, but the NBA, well, just check in on this map of the Northwest Division. I'll say it, OKC gets a pass. Please bring back the Sonics, but sorry, the state of Oklahoma cannot even compare to the beauty of the Pacific Northwest. That should not be in the same sentence. Remove NBA divisions completely. Just keep the East and West. Adam Silver, come on, what are we doing? But if you think that's bad, college football turned this whole debacle into a national disaster overnight, and it really hit close to home. College football used to be one of the few pure sports. It was built on regional identity, integrity, and it was beautiful. SEC was Southern, Big Ten was Midwestern, Pac-12 was West Coast. Then schools and conferences got greedy for the money, just like me right now, because I have to pay rent. It's NBA playoff season, so let me tell you about an app I've been using called Kalshi.com, where I can bet on teams in all 50 states. Kalshi is the first and only legal prediction market where you can trade and bet on anything, whether it's Grammys, Bitcoin, politics, sports. Come on now. Let's take a look at what the markets are saying for the NBA Finals. Boom, pro men's basketball champion Oklahoma Oklahoma City is the heavy favorite at 61 cents. If they had 50, that means you bet 100 and get 200 back. They have more than that, meaning you are going to get less of a return. But if you bet on New York or Minnesota at 17 and 14, you are going to get a massive return because those are the underdogs. You can see how this goes. You move it to May, that thing's going up 30, 40, back down to 40, 60 again. Kalshi has over 1 million users in all 50 states, and they facilitated over $2 billion worth of trades. So what are you waiting for? If you hit my link below, you could get a free $10 promo with your first $100 traded if you sign up. In 2021, Texas and Oklahoma, who were founding members of the Big 12, decided to join the SEC, which didn't end the world, but that snowballed into USC and UCLA joining the Big 10 in the very next season. That's when people realized college sports would never be the same and that we were headed to some very dark places. Then in 2023, the conference that I grew up watching every single Saturday night that included my school completely blew up. Oregon and Washington, the PNW, joined the Big 10. Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah joined the Big 12. And the best for last, Stanford and Cal joined the Atlantic Coast Conference. Hey, but those media rights are looking pretty good though. College football became a travel agency with helmets and forced rivalries, and your team's next rival might be 2,000 miles away. At this point, we might as well just stop complaining and accept it because this is the future of sports and it's not going to get better anytime soon. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think is next? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. The song of the day, Middle of the Ocean by Drake.